All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick. Today we will talk about the weekend games in the NFL, Week 18 openers, which will probably see the biggest line movement of any week, as is annual custom. And then we'll talk about Lions 49ers, a game that is now completely meaningless, but I'm not sure Dan Campbell is going to get the memo there. But let's start off with the games that have already happened. Drew, I think the most interesting game for a lot of reasons was Minnesota Green Bay, just because it was one that had stakes for both teams, which was a rarity on the Sunday slate. How much do you think that the market has overrated Green Bay or hasn't overrated Green Bay?
No, it's a very fair question. Green Bay, my heaviest action in that game was Green Bay second half, and it got there by the hair of their chinny chin chins with a furious comeback late. But ultimately, that was a really poor performance by that defense. The Minnesota gave them opportunities, I thought, early to really seize control of that game, and Green Bay obviously didn't take them. I think it's reasonable to wonder if Green Bay is the team we think that is going to be a problem heading on the road in the playoffs. If you were rating the Packers as a +4, +5, +6 type of team, I think you need a serious reassessment after what you saw against another legit opponent.
Thought it was impressive enough that they were able to surge back on offense and move the ball as they did, despite Jordan Love being in pure drop back sets because were needing to throw constantly, being down by so much. But the defense just doesn't, they've never really had the personnel. I don't know what's going on with Jair Alexander, but they seemingly can't cover the middle of the field, and Darnold just ate them up. I thought Darnold was remarkably impressive, even beyond the numbers. Now, he had the pick, and he had a couple of off throws. Even the final throw that won the game was slightly off, but just his ability to stay in the pocket and then make just off-platform throws and just use his arm, which is a beast. I think that, do they have to trade JJ McCarthy? Did they really move on from Donald? Isn't he one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the league when he's in this type of infrastructure?
They're going to have a very tough decision, really. I know that last week we were joking and we were like, give me a Kevin O'Connell and we'll figure it out. But your points are very fair. Darnold under pressure this season has not been great. And the offensive line for the Vikings has gotten shakier and shakier as they have accrued injuries and just in general gotten a little bit weary. But I would say that what he did today was a emphatic no, I'm a guy that is not going to fold under pressure and, specifically bring us to defeat. His performance was pretty remarkable. And honestly, we got to give Kevin O'Connell his flowers. The handful of plays that he called, particularly the throwing it, I thought, on second down in the series that ultimately put this game away. It was that was a ballsy call. And it was a beautifully constructed play. And Darnold made the pass to JJ, who catches it and then sets him up for a convertible 3rd and 2. And then the game is over. I know that in a lot of ways, fumbling the bag to the tune of letting the Packers even be in the game at that point is worth kind of scrutinizing. And now that's 2 games in a row that they've done that against the Packers, where they have been clearly in control. And then you blink and it's like, oh, wait, actually, this is close again. How did this happen? But the fact that they made the plays they needed to right at the death was pretty impressive. And I honestly just really was in awe and impressed by the play calls themselves. I thought they were pretty out of the box and obviously caught the Packers on their heels. So well done to Kevin O'Connell. I can't believe that the Vikings are back in the same exact kind of headspace that they've been now for several years, where it's like, well, I mean, we obviously need a plan for the future, but what we just got from our quarterback is so good. Do we keep him or do we make a new plan? And they have presumably, a very tough decision, between, do we invest in the guy we drafted with a top 10 pick, or do we keep Sam Darnold and chase the title, because we could wake up on a week from today, and Vikings are your 1 seed, and they're on the bye, and they're all of a sudden your favorite to win the NFC. So it's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I don't think there's any team in the NFC who's materially better than they are. Like you could say that Detroit, Philadelphia are slightly better than them, but I don't think it's a massive gulf. And that's reflected in the fact that Detroit have opened in the 2.5 to 3 point range favoritism over the Vikings. There are a lot of, I think, awards repercussions coming out of this week. I think the easiest one is that I think Kevin O'Connell is just home. Like I don't think it matters even if he loses by 25 to the Lions. I think that at 14, even at 14-3, the fact that their win total is 6.5. Darnold is the story of the season. And I just think it's done. And I don't think there is any way that, short of committing a crime, and it would depend on how heinous the crime was, honestly, he may still get home with a lower felony. So I think that Kevin O'Connell, I think that is basically done. Who do you think wins MVP?
I don't know, man. I think this is a 50-50.
I thought you'd be more bullish on Allen.
No. Bullish on Allen?
Well, I know that you would vote Lamar as I would, I think, but I think you've been more expecting that Allen would just kind of get an arbitrary bump, which, to be clear, he is. And if you swap the stat profiles and kept the names, Josh Allen would have been minus 10,000 2 weeks ago, but he's not. And he is getting some arbitrary bump with voters, which, to be fair, I think there are paths to get to construct why Allen might be more deserving of Lamar. It's just that voters and voter types aren't pointing to that. They're not pointing to the fact that, Allen takes way fewer sacks than Lamar, and he's been better in high leverage, short yardage. Okay. That's like his EPA per play is slightly higher than Lamar. Like those are all fine reasons to vote Josh Allen. It's just that voters are pointing to the fact that, he's got, he's a 2 seed and Lamar's a 3 seed. It's like, well, Lamar's defense sucked for like 2.5 months. So how would you allocate equity in the market off the top of your head between Allen and Lamar? If we assume that Saquon is probably not in this discussion anymore.
I would say 51-49, Josh Allen.
Wow. Okay. Bullish on Lamar. I like it. Well, that would make Lamar plus 250 something of a bet. Which I would have Allen a little bit higher, but I do think that it's closer than I expected it to feel after that game, because Allen was, having watched every snap of that, cheering for Josh Allen's demise, and there was one tipped pass where that really could have gotten picked.
Oh my God, I saw that one too. But I saw that one.
As you're,
that was brutal.
Yeah, which it wasn't a bad throw or anything. No. He just got hit.
He did have some bad throws that.
He wasn't amazing. His completion percentage was poor. The 2 touchdowns were like ridiculous. It was a great throw to Cooper, but an even better catch. And then the Keon Coleman one, in real time, you're thinking, is this going to get picked? It's probably going to go out. It's going to get knocked down. It's a touchdown.
Well, I got a key question for you. One of 2 things is true. Either the world is going to be, wake up one day this week and be like, oh, the Ravens are the best team in the NFC. This team is a monster. Their defense is coming on. Their offense is unstoppable. They should be the favorites. And if that's sort of the mindset of like, oh no, they're the best now, then I think that actually is winning the sales for Lamar's MVP case. Because if people are like literally thinking 2-3 seed, who cares? The Ravens are clearly the better team, then Lamar gets help. And I don't know if the world is there yet. And if it's not, then that means that there's room to bet the Ravens AFC, because that's where the headspace should be, I think. I would take if it was a pick 'em in the divisional round between, Buffalo and Baltimore in Buffalo, I would take a pick 'em in a heartbeat right now with Baltimore. And I don't think it will be. I think it'll be, I think they'll be dogs.
It'd be like Bills -1 or something.
I would happily take Baltimore in that spot, assuming that there's not extenuating circumstances like all of their guys get hurt in the wild card round or something. If there is a kind of a balancing of accounts, a reckoning of who is the best team right now, and people just kind of decide, oh, it's Baltimore. Then maybe maybe and again, like, this is how stupid this is. Like, the fact that Bills beat the Jets 40-14 today, largely because the Jets quit and there were multiple defensive scores, or at least short fields and scores. That's not a good reason to give Josh Allen the MVP. But people may ultimately say, "Well, that was also an impressive victory that the Bills put up against the Jets." It's in a different universe to what the Ravens did in Houston, I thought.
Yeah, I think Allen was good. He was par for his stats, like his EPA per play on the season. Like, it'll be static after today. His passer rating static after today. Like, going 2 touchdowns, no picks, rushing touchdown, 199 total yards, bad completion percentage. Like, he was fine. I think that he was more likely to win, not because he played amazingly well or balled out, but simply because he played solidly and avoided the banana skin of a catastrophe, which I think would have cost him the award. So I was talking to a mutual friend of ours earlier today about how, after the game, how I thought the voting would break down if the vote were held tomorrow. And just my best guess subjectively would be, obviously can't do it objectively, my best guess is that the vote would be like Allen 24 first place votes, Lamar 19, and Saquon would get like 7 first place votes or something, because there's always some wonky aspects to that race. So you'd say it's 7 for the field. Maybe someone throws in a Patrick Mahomes vote or something weird. So I think that Allen is rightfully the favorite, but I do think that there is a lot of uncertainty. I think that Lamar, if he balls out against Cleveland and has a similar performance to what he did on Christmas or what he did against the Dolphins last year to lock up MVP, I think that might be enough to tip it. And also, like, I think that there is so much more information. Every year, there is more information out there for voters to consume. There's more data. There's more intelligent conversation that directs who wins these awards, just because statistics are more accessible. Like, Patrick Surtain 20 years ago would have no chance to win Defensive Player of the Year because he only has 4 interceptions. But now we can see, like, his PFF grade and the fact that he lined up on Jamar Chase was on the field for 56 snaps. Surtain was on for 43 of them guarding Chase, and Chase had 26 total yards against Surtain. Like, that wasn't available 20 years ago, and it is now, and that matters. But so I think that with all this information available, and this applies to all awards, is that it's more relevant than ever to just kind of ask yourself, who would you vote for based on what all the information is out there, and based on the smart people that you talk to who follow the league closely, who would they vote for? And I do think there is just an element to the fact that, most of those people I talk to would vote Lamar Jackson. And none of those people think that Joe Burrow has a good comeback story for comeback player of the year. And everyone would vote Jaden Daniels, offensive rookie of the year, over Brock Bowers, even though a strange minority thinks that Brock Bowers being the best tight end is better for that award. So I don't know. I think that, that stuff's not determinative, but I do think it is relevant to kind of ask those questions and not just accept the idea that, the voters, they want to vote Allen, so they'll definitely vote Allen. Like, yeah, that's real to an extent, but that kind of, it burns out at some point where, ultimately the voters are pretty tied to the numbers, and the numbers point Jackson, at least what voters typically weight, which is touchdown interception ratio and passer rating and team record, which is going to have to do a lot of work for Allen. So, there's a lot to unpack. There is more uncertainty in these awards, particularly with MVP, because the cases are pretty much done now. Like, we know that Lamar is probably going to play well and just blow out the Browns. They're 17.5 point favorites. Allen is going to play like a quarter against the Patriots. So nothing is really going to change. Is he even
going to? Why would you even?
Oh, he's got the starts. He's got kind of consecutive starts thing that I think he wants to keep alive. So okay. I think
I didn't realize he was doing a Cal Ripken thing. Okay.
Yeah. So I think he'll play a quarter, throw a touchdown, get out. So because normally MVP in particular, because it's so much more scrutinized than other awards, normally it's just a landslide. Like, it's not usually a close vote in any sport, really. It's usually just there is someone, even if they're only slightly ahead, that they just win. But because these cases are so differentiated and appeal to different ideas of what valuable should be, and the fact that voter fatigue is kind of the biggest thing behind Allen in a way. Where if Allen had 2 MVPs and Lamar had none, then Lamar would be winning this. And it wouldn't be close.
It wouldn't be close. You're absolutely right. And I am obviously my head is in pretzel here, which is why I paused so aggressively before even kind of tipping what I think will happen. But ultimately, when the dust settles, the fact that one Josh Allen and one Lamar Jackson MVP comes from these last 2 seasons, that's cosmically that's correct, right? Like these were your 2 best players, and if they didn't get them in the right season, so be it. But if you're betting this market, that's obviously not very satisfying. Because this year, I think Lamar has pretty obviously outperformed Allen. It's just a matter of he's already won it twice, and Allen, this is his time. So it's annoying that that's the paradigm, but it is.
Yes, I think Allen will ultimately get there, but I think it's going to be by the skin of his teeth. Let's jump to Week 18 openers. These lines, like I mentioned, they're going to jump around a lot of. It's just like these random games, like Jags Colts. Like, how do we price that in Week 18? Or pricing Bills Pats as well, which is another weird one. Those are typically the strangest games, and often the games that have the biggest edges. Like there's rorts just pop up all the time in these awards, like figuring out that Josh Allen's going to play a quarter. Can you then parlay Bills first quarter money line with Patriots full game money line, which is obviously anti-correlated, but if Josh Allen is going to be out there for a quarter, then it's quite good. Was there any game that jumped off the page to you?
I have to kind of set the table first here with telling you that the final week of the NFL season, it does not matter as I look across my record of years betting football past. Does not matter if you get 10 points of CLV. All of these games are a freaking coin flip. This is flipping coins, and it drives me crazy because I've had some years where I was like, flirting with excellence in contests and things like that, and you're literally still like, I have massive edges cornered, and I do not know if I'm going to do better than 3-2, and that's all I need to get some sort of payoff here. So ultimately, I would say the best you can really hope for in Week 18 is slightly over 500, and so for those reasons, I tend to stake down. Like, even if I feel like there are big edges on the board, I will, take a big step backwards. Most of sort of the interesting stuff is going to kind of depend on this game that's being played now between Atlanta and Washington, and whether the NFC South is still in flux, or whether Tampa Bay can win it with a drubbing of whatever's left of the Saints at this point. And then on the flip side, is Washington still fighting for their playoff lives? Is an interesting story to me. Certainly a loss here opens the door for other teams to steal that final playoff spot. So there are a number of games that are just absolute, could not mean less. And actually, that was actually one of the funnier subplots of today. The Raiders did themselves no favors winning. They have moved themselves from a battle for the first overall pick to get the future franchise quarterback that they desperately need to now the 8th or 9th. Like, I forget where they stand now, but they're like clearly like in a position where there are 3 or 4 teams ahead of them that could draft quarterbacks. So they might be stuck picking the 5th quarterback in a weak quarterback draft class, which I'm just amazed at how this happens to a team which was, just so lost for so much of the season. The Giants, the same story. This win today against the Colts, like, congratulations. I guess you're showing that you have some fight and some spirit and some pieces that you want to build around, and that in your 100 years of a franchise, your longest ever losing streak, could be broken with an emphatic win at the end of the season that shows you care and tells the fans you care. But you move yourself from first overall pick to 4th. And I don't think any of the teams that just passed you in draft order are likely to win this week. So, it is very, very strange to see teams working themselves down the draft table who so desperately need quarterbacks, while other teams like, I don't know, the Browns pretty clearly seem to understand the assignment and have positioned themselves pretty well to now figure out the future of what they want to get done. The Browns, the biggest need I had today was the Dolphins, Jay. I laid 6.5 everywhere. And I was like, DT, yeah, I get to bet against DTR with the defense that's surging. And, I think that Tua looks, he'll be fine. And Tyreek Hill is going to go. Maybe even Waddle goes. This is a game the Dolphins need. And then to wake up and see the news that, now my hopes and dreams are pinned to Tyler Huntley. I was like, oh boy. And watching the first half of that game, I was like, man, this is going to be a brutal sweat. But thankfully the defense showed up for the Dolphins. And, I think ultimately, counting on a couple of teams who have pretty clearly telegraphed their intentions is reasonable. The Jets qualify in that discussion, by the way. That effort from the Jets today was wow. It was wild on the defensive side.
Putrid there. And it is honestly, if not for the fact that I needed Josh Allen to fail today and he didn't, it would have been so gleeful watching Aaron Rodgers fail so aggressively in the way that he did. He was horrific, like a 0 out of 100 type of performance from Rodgers. And for someone who, to me, has just brought it all upon himself. Like, he deserves all of the pain of this season with how he carries on over and over again. And it wasn't just the picks, like the missed throws, the safety, like everything was just a complete disaster. That organization has just revealed itself as a clown operation until further notice. But we'll say 2.5-point dogs at home, which that has to bake in some chance, obviously, of Tua playing, because as mediocre and catastrophic as the Jets are, and by the way, the Jets rolling over last year against Cleveland in Week 17, basically handed on a relative platter Stefanski, Flacco, and Garrett all their awards, and they may have handed Allen MVP to an extent in this game by rolling over to a comical degree. But I don't think Tyler Huntley should be a 2.5-point favorite over the Jets. And now, look, the line is baking in some chance that the Tua will play, so it's not like the 2.5 is 100% that Tyler Huntley is going to play, but Tyler Huntley's not very good. And as bad as the Jets are, as woeful as they are, I think they would have more success against the Dolphins than they did the Bills.
I got one quick. I agree with that. I have one quick thought for you. We haven't mentioned it, but Sean Payton's decision making at the end of the game against the Bengals. I was at a party, and I was explaining to everyone after the miracle touchdown, like, oh, he's got to go for 2. Like, you have to. Like, this isn't even the decision. Like, you're going to be a live dog if you go to overtime. Like, taking this into overtime tied is a disaster. And Peyton electing to do that was mind-blowing. And now seeing the Broncos as 9-point favorites against presumably the Chiefs backups doesn't feel right. I think there's a realistic chance that the Chiefs have enough depth to keep this game competitive. I don't think Wentz is necessarily expecting to go out there and just roll over here. He wants to continue to have opportunities to be a backup in this league. And the Broncos are not a very good team right now. But outside of Patrick Surtain, there are still a lot of ways you can put pressure on this team with passing. And I think, the Chiefs are going to have a lot of secondary players who are, good and talented, who are going to try to, use this as an opportunity for, I need, some consideration for being a contributor for a playoff run here. So Chiefs at +9 stands out to me pretty obviously.
Yeah, I mean, that all depends on an understanding of the Chiefs' deep depth that I don't really have a grasp of, to be honest. But because the thing is that last year they were in the same position, nothing to play for Week 18, and from what I could gather, they sat everyone. Like, no Mahomes, no Kelsey. L'Jarius Sneed didn't play. McDuffie didn't play. Chris Jones was out there because he had a sack bonus that he wanted to get. And they beat Eastern Stick 13-12. So they're probably going to be pretty bad. But the Broncos, I mean, Bo Nix wasn't. I mean, I know he had some sick throws, but Bo Nix was not that impressive to me against the Bengals. And yeah, to your point, Peyton. Just there, and I get that there is a small element of the fact that a tie was as good as a win, and that goes into the overtime calculation a little bit. But like, what's the probability that the game's going to be a tie when Cincinnati, the tie does no good for them? Like, they are going to go all out and they're going to be making decisions in overtime that kind of overemphasize risk taking and going for the win. So, like, what is the chance that the clock hits zero? And I get that it almost got there if they would have got a first down, but I just think all things considered, like, there's 8 seconds left. Like, that is the ultimate time to go for it when you're an underdog on the road. You've just had this drive against their defense, like, and also you've been able to run the ball, like, against the Cincinnati run defense that is not particularly imposing. Just like run for 2 yards and make the playoffs, Sean Payton. And also, like, I mean, the Bengals didn't punt all game in regulation.
Yes,
they didn't punt once.
That was a huge part of the calculus in my mind.
Someone who needed the Broncos there. That was very, very frustrating.
Hey, man. I think Broncos plus 3.5 is going to go down as my worst beat of the entire season.
They won the game so many different times. At least like it felt like they were going to.
Or they covered. They covered.
Yes.
If they knock in a very makeable field goal. Wow. I guess here's final thoughts. I guess there's just the people who are giving Sean Payton grace because of Ty would have clinched. Okay, like I'm not there at all because he didn't conduct himself in the overtime, minutes like a coach who had a grand architecture of getting to the tie. So and his defense was just completely overmatched. And I guess that's more my thought as to why this team shouldn't be 9-point favorites. Like, I think we might have overrated this defense, at least in terms of the current state of who's available. And the fact that when they go up against the kind of average quarterbacks in the NFL, like, there is still some room for them to move the ball pretty aggressively. So I think Wentz could keep this thing competitive.
Yeah, I will say I do think that for a team that literally did not force a punt until overtime, it was the best defensive performance I've ever seen from a team that did not force a punt until overtime. Like, the pass rush is awesome, Surtain is awesome. It's just that Burrow is that good, and Higgins and Chase are that good, and Riley Moss, whether he's just not that good or whether he's still dealing with the knee a little bit, I don't know what happened there. But I do think that against Carson Wentz, they're going to look a lot better. At the same time, this team should have been down 26 to the Colts at home, and the season should have been over.
Yeah. I got one other key question for you, Jay. We sure the Titans want to win?
So here's the thing. Also, we sure the Texans don't want to kind of like, build some momentum and play one good game. Yeah. 7 in 2 months.
I laugh at this game for a couple reasons because Texans season-long win total was 9.5. So if you had over 9.5, you're probably like, oh my God, how is that not going to get there? Because they are now dogs to the Titans in week 18. The Titans are currently, they would probably be the second choice of quarterback for the future, which I'm assuming they would like to address. I doubt that they are going to give Will Levis another roll of the dice here. And a Titans win here moves them behind at least 2, if not 3 other teams who are in the position to draft quarterback. So I honestly am shocked that the market is giving you plus money on the Texans right now in Tennessee.
Yep. I would say the thing just overall with week 18 and with tanking is that I don't think tanking really happens on the field. Like, tanking happens on injury reports and depth charts, and the Browns going to DTR instead of Jameis, who just undoubtedly Jameis gives the Browns a much better chance to win football games than DTR. That is where tanking occurs, and so I think you'll be able to get a grasp on how much the Titans do or don't want to win this game based on, like, I haven't been tracking the Titans' injury situation that closely, but is Jeffrey Simmons on the injury report on Wednesday for no reason? It's like the Panthers just randomly. Chuba Hubbard scored the game-winning touchdown last week and then went straight to IR. Like, I've never seen that before in my life. He literally scored the game-winning touchdown. It was his final play of the season. I think he got hurt celebrating in the end zone. So, yeah, I think that is more how it happened. Like, I was thinking about ways to, with the Giants-Colts game, to be like, all right, how do I... This is a very unique situation where you have a desperate team that is trailing by multiple touchdowns against a team that is desperate in theory to lose. There should be some angle here, but just watching the game, like the Giants, they're not playing to lose. Like the guys out there, they're playing to win the game, and then they did win the game, much to the detriment of future players who will be replacing them on the roster, at least in the case of Drew Lock. So, yeah, that is probably the weirdest line as you look at it. It's like, oh, Titans -4 against the Texans. That's like the definitive Week 18, just kind of ridiculous
it's gonna be
matchup.
Davis
overall.
Mills, right? Like he's fine.
Yeah.
This is not a huge. Is that even that big of a step down from what we've seen from CJ Stroud this year? I don't know.
Geez, CJ Stroud was bad against the Ravens, particularly in the first quarter and a bit, even when it hadn't descended into farce yet, and he just was missing guys. And just I don't know what has happened to Stroud, but he has seemingly taken a huge step back. Okay, the holidays just got merrier with Premier League festive fixtures on NBC USA and streaming on Peacock today through January 6th. We're bringing you the greatest gifts, magical moments, and holiday cheer. Don't miss a moment of the drama and excitement from the best players in the world.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Okay, Lions, Niners, Monday Night Football. The reason, Drew, one of the reasons why Dan Campbell is not going to win Coach of the Year is that as soon as the Vikings won against the Packers, which rendered this game completely meaningless in terms of stakes, because the Lions... it just doesn't matter this game because the one seed will be decided in the head-to-head against Minnesota in Detroit next weekend, where the Lions are 2.5 to 3 point favorites. The reason why Dan Campbell just can't win is the fact that the line didn't move, and he's a madman who's just seemingly going to go all out to win this game. Do you think that is correct, or do you think that perhaps there will be some seeing Jesus on the road to Damascus and being more conservative with one starters with the greater goal in mind?
Cooler heads will prevail here.
Niners.
I like the Niners. I bet a lot of Niners after that result came in, and I was literally like, yes, they did. Like, oh, I got a good one. And I was just waiting for the news to come across the wire, and I'm like, what? Where is the news? Like, what is happening here? Why aren't the Lions just capitulating this game? They need to be 100% or as close to possible for that Vikings game, or their Super Bowl chances go from whatever it is. We can argue about it, but we'll just say 20% to like 5% if they lose that game to the Vikings, and this is massive. So. Yeah, I think cooler heads will prevail. This is such a high leverage spot for them to kind of keep, this game, keep health in their back pocket. And I think they will ultimately have a relatively conservative effort on Monday Night Football. I'd rather actually talk about Premier League than Monday Night Football game, if we're being honest. Did you see Nottingham Forest is second right now on the Premier League table? Oh my goodness gracious! I know that Arsenal still has a game in hand, but the cash out offers on I guess if I had like extremely fortuitous or advantageous cash out offers on Liverpool title, should I just take it now, or you think no, don't touch it, don't touch it.
Yeah, they're a juggernaut. And Arsenal's without Saka for like 2 months, it looks like. And if they don't have Saka, they really have limited avenues to goal outside of set pieces and Erdegaard magic. So ride it out.
If Nottingham Forest runs me down,
I'm worried about Nottingham.
I'll have a story for life.
Yeah, you can get out the other side with me on Nottingham Forest. You can bet whatever price you like. It'll be Liverpool or it will be Arsenal if they chase them down somehow. But those will be the two teams that can win the Premier League, not Nottingham Forest and not Manchester City either.
Oh my goodness gracious! They haven't even been sacked with points. I guess they're just assuming it's coming, so they're just like, we might as well just.
They have about the same level of chance to win the Premier League as Nottingham Forest, which is 0. But they both have the same chance to win the Premier League as the Detroit Lions, who don't play in that league. I think the way that I would look into attacking this game is there has to be some potential that Campbell will, take the foot off the gas if the result is getting out of hand in either direction. And so I would be looking at, if this starts to trending towards blowout, to be looking at live unders on Jahmyr Gibbs. That would be my angle, because I think he is the one guy. He is the one guy where there would be perhaps some compulsion to rest him up for the Vikings because they've already lost David Montgomery. So there is some recent scarring from that. And just the fact that he is so valuable to that offense. And like he said, at 18.5 rushing attempts in a game that is meaningless to them. Like that is such an indictment on Dan Campbell if he hits the over on that. And you know what? He may well do if it's a close game. But if it does get out of hand, I think there is going to have to be some sense of sanity setting in, that he's not going to go chasing a game that doesn't mean anything, despite everything that he seemingly stands for as a man on earth. But yeah, that would be my look in this game.
My other kind of, I love that, by the way. Who would get the attention? Because like there's a chance that there's a full-on Ole here from the Niners.
Yeah, I mean, it's in terms of guys behind Gibbs in the pecking order.
Craig Reynolds?
Yeah, Craig Reynolds. He's a friend of a buddy of mine. I mean, he's the backup. Yeah, I'm not sure. Not sure he's the answer to any question.
Craig Reynolds get 12, 15 touches in this game? Okay, I dig that.
Yeah, anytime touchdown scorer, Craig Reynolds, perhaps that would be the look. Potentially Amon-Ra would be the other guy who could potentially, not see as many snaps in the second half. Perhaps Dan Campbell has memories of how he played Sam Laporta in a meaningless game and got his knee wrecked last year. So maybe he would have a short hook as well. So
I guess I got one of the general thought, like, I know that the Niners aren't going anywhere this year. That's pretty clear and obvious. But do you really want to put your plan of attack for the Niners on tape, Dan?
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Do you? Do you?
Very old.
Well, no, I'm saying like let's say that you have kind of identified tendencies about the way their defense plays right now. Do you really want to teach them how and where you want to attack them? Because next year might be an opportunity to you might have run into these guys in the playoffs, and you might want that stuff in your back pocket. So vanilla game plan, protecting your stars, all of that should come into play here for the Lions. So yeah, this is Niners or pass.
Yeah, no, I don't mind that. I think the issue is that Ben Johnson's been wasting some of the sickest plays I've ever seen in these 35-point blowouts against the Cowboys and the Bears. So maybe they just don't care. They'll just figure out the next thing, which is admirable. But at the same time, you thought maybe the fake fumble play could have been used in the fourth quarter of the NFC title game, perhaps. I don't know. Just the thought. They seem to be doing well regardless. The bag runs deep. All right, we are done for tonight. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From myself and Drew, we'll see you soon.